I'm Ali.
And we're here today to talk about activism.
Yes.
Activism. What we do, what we've done, what we think we're going to be doing going forward at this time.
Yeah.
And why. Do you want to tell? Would you like to start?
Yeah. If you know us a little bit already, you'll maybe know that we used to run a Yes Choir.
We did.
We have been fairly vocal and active in the independence everything
process.
There you go.
In the independence process, including, yes, as you said, we had the Yes Choir, and we were also, just before the pandemic, apart from really doing a lot with the Yes Choir, we were singing together and individually at all sorts of venues, doing our own music, our own thinking, our own thoughts, our own songs around the indie movement. A Yes non-partisan group together of people across the board who had the same one common goal. I think, though, activism is in our bloodstream from a lot longer than that. I think if you are part of the LGBTQI community, being part of that community has been quite a journey, quite an adventure, and does give that outside perspective, because we've always been a wee bit marginalised or politicised along the way, which gives insight that you wouldn't really get unless you were in that position, which I think a lot of us are in that position now. However, it's something that's been with us for a very long time.
Yeah. I'm wondering what we would define activism as being.
Speaking your truth, even when it doesn't particularly fit for everybody, not staying silent when it doesn't fit, maybe always to say something in the communities that we're in. I think us being together and being open about that, you don't just come out once, you come out every day to different people in different ways. And it's not always possible to be active. Sometimes we need to rest, recover. Sometimes it's not safe and we need to hide, as in all our communities. That's possible. So picking our moments to be active, and for the people who can't, are not in a safe enough position to say anything, or don't have the language or the time or the know-how to raise our voices, and hopefully help others to raise their own voices as well. So we have lots of different ways of being active. Activists, I think it goes part and parcel with being an artist, that you are able to speak to power, speak truth to power, and speak soul to soul to power. It's part of the gig in a way. And I think we're being called on more and more as communities, as individuals, to speak up when we see something that feels blatantly not aligned for us, and therefore is cutting parts of ourselves off, or cutting parts of the communities off, or gaslighting the community to hate on a specific group. So when we see that, I would like to think that we have the courage and the safety in order to speak up, so that nobody feels that vulnerable on their own. But we tend to do it with singing.
Yes. But speaking up, speaking out, standing up against power structures that are weighed towards one small elite group having power over a much larger demographic. We all are in that position. I hear quite often, I don't want to politicise this. It's like politics. You may not want to watch debates on the TV or talk about your personal politics, but actually politics is so ingrained in everything our right for anything starts at a political level. So for me, from, I would say, controversial as it's going to sound, the first time I ever voted was for the Yes campaign. So the first time I ever voted, ever, was in 2014, because it was the first time that I felt like my vote would make any difference. And I was brought in, I was interested, I was activated, engaged by that process. And since then, I know a lot more about politics than I ever did before. And so I guess I'm saying it's never too late to get interested. And also understanding that it's not about all the shouting and playing that the folk do at Westminster and the Scottish Government. That's a tiny part of what politics is for me. And community-based political activism is really a huge part of our life now, living here.
And our identity, and I think it's a really good thing that you're saying, you weren't always politicised, and I think there's a moment can be taken to spot the difference between radicalised and engaged. It's not about being en masse like sheep falling off a cliff. It's about being activated in your self-confidence, being given yourself, not in a narcissistic process of I idolise you, actually understanding that you yourself and what you say and what you put on that cross, where you put your cross, actually does have an impact. And I know certainly in my early years, I didn't think that any time I put a cross on a piece of paper, it was going to make the slightest piece of difference what happened, because it was all out of my hands. And in that, there's a disengagement. In that, there's a separation from being empowered and having a point of view. Also, it wasn't, you don't talk about religion or politics, right? You just don't do it. So that's been a big shift in the last few years. And I think we are now on the cusp of feeling what we are looking for is to magnetise, not radicalise, but magnetise towards other adults who have a similar point of view or some similar aspects in the same as us, that we can then have adult-to-adult conversations and learn from each other, as opposed to, as I say, being the lemmings or the sheep that just fall off the cliff over an idealistic idea of what the world is. It's a huge, huge topic. And without feeling engaged, without feeling empowered to speak, without actually coming out about how your point of view, you may be helping other people understand if you do. And I see of late that we've kind of all gone, well, people in my circle have gone off trying to explain to people who are in cultural bubbles that exclude or hate or speak out of alignment of what they actually have experience of. It's about empowering people. That can't empower you, but it's about offering people a safe enough space to open up, to begin to be the people who are actually bringing their point of view to the front. We run the risk otherwise of colonising ourselves and living in a colony, which it does feel like right now we're on the cusp of being, if we aren't already, certainly in Scotland, of being in a colony where, for capitalist gain, everything is going out of the country, whilst the people who are in the country are on their knees, not through choice. It's not a get off your knees point of view. It's we are traumatised, we are exhausted. It's the same all over. It's not just in Scotland. That's my experience here. And it's about how do we find ways of getting up, being resilient, and finding ways to do that. It's about finding safe enough communities to talk with, that you know that you're not on your own. It's about finding your tribe, finding your clan, finding people that you can be yourself with. And that is what brings us our well-being. That's what brings us our well-being, is to feel recognised and celebrated for who we truly are. And at the minute, it feels Scotland is in a complete portal after portal after portal. I would like to think it's an revolution. We're going to talk about that a lot. You heard it here, folks. But the evolution of us all is asking us all to keep standing up, recovering, keep standing up again, and figure out the difficult stuff and talk about the difficult stuff that in my early generation, we just didn't talk about it. It's your business and that's that. So the point of activism is to keep the conversation going. Mm. If we can keep the conversation going through the tricky bits, and then keep going again, we will get to the transformational aspect on the other side. If we get stuck in a place, we run the risk of everything that's up above us and in the sides and everybody just giving up, apathy, trauma-based, can't be bothered, my opinion doesn't count. If we buy into that, then a very few elite people are going to steal all of our health and happiness. I'm not here for that.
No, I think I like what you're saying. There's a need to stay curious and ask questions and not get rigid. For instance, I've voted and been part of yes-based politics for a long time. I still would like independence. I'd like to vote for an independent Scotland that I will be really proud to be part of.
Yeah.
And so it's not just enough to go independence by any means.
Yeah.
It has to be a Scotland that is different.
Yeah.
Because what's the point otherwise?
Yeah.
That's my personal
I think it's a really good point. I think the days of black and white, you're right, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm wrong, these days are over. And we need to find a common ground. Mm-hmm. And it needs to actually be a well-being economy with the people at the heart of the argument. What is a well-being economy? It's when people are well and not traumatised over and over again, that they feel safe, that they can take their foot off the... Oh, hello, darling, getting involved in this story.
Hi.
Hi. That they're not feeling overwhelmed by writing 1,000 emails every day to their MPs because their MPs have their backs. That they can stand up and have standing ovations at European conferences like we had with the Leave the Light On with Alan Smith, a brilliant speech, a standing ovation, first ever. We're not in Europe now. And the way that politics is done feels like a massive game. Oh, I'm saying that and you're saying that and we'll be opposed to this and we'll be opposed. It's just like, stop it. You're going to have to, somebody's going to just, my wish would be, stop it. We need to speak about all of this in an adult way so that we can move forward. And if capitalism is at your end of your core, if you're looking at being the best and being the first, we're going to come to net zero at these things, then you're missing the trick. We're going to be the happiest, we're going to be the wellest, we're going to be a great inspiration for other countries. That's something to be proud of. Not we have raped and pillaged our own land, as well as letting other people rape and pillage our land, and therefore, woohoo! Look at us. We've got the least debt. The whole system is that's coming to a head. It's very mediocre thinking, in my opinion. It's very mediocre thinking. We're scrambling to just not be the worst, to manage to give people enough, police, enough ambulance services, enough NHS. We're nowhere near a wellbeing economy, But we do have to start somewhere, and I would suggest we start by not traumatising us all anymore. So do you have anything else to add to that before we go on to our keen points of interest?
I think if I was going to add anything, I would think about a conversation I had at the weekend where we were talking about various feelings of being fed a narrative that doesn't line up, doesn't feel like it rings true. It's a narrative created to instill fear and create this chaotic thing that needs rescued, and then there's a fake rescue that we're all very pleased that we got rescued from the thing that wasn't really a thing. It was a long conversation around that, and what came to mind for me was we do get a lot of mainstream media narratives that are through a filter of the people who are in power, through a capitalist using power differentiated filter that completely changes the outcome of the narrative once it's squeezed through that filter. And it's not our fault that we believe it, because we see it everywhere. It's fed to us by all the different mediums that can carry the narrative. We get it over and over again. And for me, with how my personality structure works, I can sometimes go, oh, maybe I'm the one that's wrong, because everybody keeps telling me this, this and this. And it doesn't ring true for me, but maybe it's me. And the little mantra that I came up with, it's not mine, I heard it somewhere else, but I linked it to the story just to be clear, is question everything. And not that being a skeptic is the only way to exist in the world. I don't mean that. I just mean you don't need to swallow anything whole. And actually it's absolutely okay to question everything. You might get enough answers that go, oh, actually, right, that was right. I don't need to be skeptical after all. But it's okay to question, because that's part of our authentic autonomy. Our structure gets to go, I don't feel right with this knowledge. Can you explain more? And then I can make a decision.
It's a really good point. I think when I see something that's gone through a filter, well, even if it's a true thing, where I go to is, what's the why? Why has that happened? So, they're doing that and they're doing that. It's like, but why are they? People would rather sit in their houses and, I'm going to say do fuck all. Have we got a swearing policy? People would rather sit in their houses or meet their pals or do something rather than doing what they're doing. So why are they doing that? Or why are they saying that? Who's fed that to them? Or why are they so activated that they're literally taking to the street? Why? Again, going from a place of wanting to understand what's happening as opposed to a traumatic or a trigger response to reaction to what's happening. And sometimes that's the why. People are triggered and they're reacting to something. But if I can understand, then I can respond. If I can't understand, then I can be triggered and be running around in a loop of fight, flight, freeze, doing what my pals are doing the same as them, trying to keep safe. So better to be in the community than not in any, than to be on the outside. It's a very natural thing for us as humans to stay, not want to be put out of the group. So loads of reasons to go along with.
Toe the line.
Toe the line. Accept. Itchy nose at the thought of that. It's my autonomic nervous system working right now at the thought of all of that. But towing the line, doing the same as the others, having a life, just ignore it, discount it. It doesn't matter to me until it does. And then when it does matter to you, you're like, oh, I see now why other people have been doing all of that. And we build our activism of whatever we're talking about on top of so many ancestors. Some we knew, some that aren't here now, and that we've met along the way on the adventure of being active. Some generations before that and generations before that. So anything that does transform and change is built on generation after generation, finding some people who will stand up. And we don't win every battle. You don't win every war. And speaking of that, I think the whole thought of war is and the dis-ease in the air right now is destabilizing of people's sense of safety.
Any big threat that we have no control over, no say in, is going to be destabilizing, at least on a small scale, but probably bigger than that.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about active today? Because it's very personal. Our activations are very personal because, as I said, once it hits you in the face, you can't not see it.
And there is something about going, where is the line? What is the line of something before it feels personal to you, or it feels the impact is enough that you can be a little curious, or that actually you go, every human being deserves a certain level of well-being, a certain level of safety, a certain level of human rights in their life, that actually it doesn't need to personally impact me for it to be important. And there are so many things that are wrong just now that it really, I want to give permission that it's okay that you don't have to be actively involved in every single fight, because there will be some other people who are fighting. But just going, it doesn't impact me, I don't see it every day, it doesn't matter, for me, doesn't cut it anymore. And I'm really appreciative of all the people who are out there fighting for every other person who probably can't do the fight themselves because they've got a lot of other stuff to deal with. So for us personally,
here we go.
We moved to this beautiful place.
Yes.
Within 6 months of being here, we were told of a necessary upgrade to a pylon overhead line. Necessary upgrade was a slight misinformation in terminology, because actually what we are facing, communities up and down Scotland, but the one that is our personal impact is from Kintore, which is up that way, and down to Teeling, which is near Dundee. 70 miles of overhead lines. 2 very huge substations. One of them is nearly 800 acres, which I wish I had an analogy or something else that you could refer to how big that is. It's really big. It's a lot of
lots
acres.
of football pitches.
Lots and lots of football pitches, indeed. This being the first thing that people were hit with, a year on, we now also have hundreds and hundreds of acres of solar farms, wind farms, battery storage, battery energy storage systems, it's really hard to say, BESS for short, and hydrogen plants and ammonia plants and lots of concrete, lots of metal, all in the name of net zero. We need this for net zero. We personally live in a wood. We protect our environment. We love the animals. We love humans. We would like to do whatever we can to positively impact this planet while we're here.
It's why we moved to be in a wood, to be guardians of
exactly
trees, which give us oxygen.
And we are not denying climate change. We are not against positive moves for the environment. But this is being sold as a green, better for the environment, towards net zero thing. And more and more and more and more we find out
it's mind-blowing.
Actually, trees will be cut down.
They're cutting down trees.
Animals and birds will die. Insects will die. People will be forced to leave their houses. People will lose money on their houses. The list goes on and on and on. And if you know us at all, you'll know we've been talking about this quite a bit for the last wee while. And we will keep talking about it.
We will.
Because part of it is fighting against what we believe to be a wrong move for the environment.
And it's not just happening in Scotland. It is happening to us in Scotland, but I've seen stuff in Wales that it's happening down there. I've seen stuff in Essex. It's happening in Skye, you know. I just come down from the Isle of Skye, and there it was. It was awfully high, a huge big pylon standing by. I mean, these aren't the songs that we know.
Oh.
This isn't what we were...
Those will be the folk songs of
these
our
are, yes, they will be. They'll be the folk songs now. I'll finish that one for you later, dear.
I mean...
It just goes on and on.
It does.
And being on the front line where we get the letters, it's... You get letters through the door, you then go to a consultation. I feel sure we're going to be back in touch with you once we've done that. It's the money isn't staying in Scotland. It's not just Westminster who are responsible for the GB Energy and all of that that's now going up to Aberdeen and dangling carrots in the faces for jobs. It's the Scottish Government as well that are making decisions around energy and have issued the licence in the first place. Not this year, not last year, but it's not one, it seems multi, and of course this is part of the confusion. Who is it? Who are we talking to? I know that the Ontario Canadian Pension Fund for the teachers, no problem with teachers having a pension fund. It's a big issue here about pensioners and all of that. But in their, I think, 25% of SSEN. But that's only 25%.
Which, to be clear, is the company
that we're dealing with.
That is putting in the overhead lines.
That are putting in the overhead. Now, when these would have been decided upon, it was years ago. The technology has already moved on, surely, by now. I feel sure that it has. And if it hasn't, it will soon. And they will already be obsolete, but you can't get it back. You can't get the natural earth back. Once you've been and destroyed it, you've destroyed it.
If you look further down the line of, actually, would these things, pylons, turbines, solar panels, are all of these things actually going to have a positive impact on our environment? Well, there is enough evidence to go, it's debatable. It's a lot of concrete, it's a lot of farming land lost, it's a lot of natural habitats lost, it's a lot of peatland, arable farming land, all lost that will never regain their natural use. So, and something as simple as a car battery, an electric car battery. These are, yes, the emissions, there's no emissions, but actually these batteries take, I think it's 7 years before they have worked off their carbon footprint because of how they're made. So actually this greenwashing that we're being
Fed.
bombarded with actually is some misinformation that we were talking about, and we are actively being asked to be experts in things that we came here to just live our life.
Yeah, we did.
And we know about things that we
Didn't
never
really want
ever
to.
thought we would want to know about, need to know about.
Yeah.
And all of that is because we believe in protecting Scotland, our environment, our communities, the other people who are so badly impacted by this. And it's not just how they will be impacted if the things go ahead, but it's how they're impacted now with the fear, the lies, the completely 1 week the story's this and the next week it's changed.
Keeps changing.
Not knowing what's happening to you. 1 week you're safe and the next week you're in the firing line again. This is wrong, and it's being allowed to go ahead as meaningful consultation. So you don't need to do anything that I ask you to do, but I would really appreciate if sometimes when we go, will you sign this petition, will you read this, have a listen to this video, just even if you think it's not going to impact me, I live here, there and there, well, we didn't think it was going to impact us.
Sure.
And the more it happens, the more it's going to keep happening, because this is to make money for people,
and
not for us.
the easy slur is, oh, you're a NIMBY, which means, what the heck does it mean?
Not in my backyard.
And it's not. I'm an AFTY. Not in anybody's fucking backyard. Not in anybody's backyard. You're destroying the environment. You're destroying people's lives. You're hurting people, all for the good of the non-wellbeing economy. All for the good of no economy for the people feeding it back in. No, the people are still, even more so, going to be cold this winter. They're going to freeze these pensioners. That's okay. And we're going to have the most energy ever. We're going to be the biggest at the best at having energy, but we're not giving it to the people. That is fundamentally flawed. That's fundamentally abusive. And it's fundamentally capitalist cronyism. Everybody, and you'll get some, we're going to have all this money that we're going to feed into the communities.
To be clear, that money comes from the people paying their bills.
And we've got the highest, got the highest bills in the north, and the coldest bits, and it's coming out over our heads, and we've got no access to actually getting the energy. That's where I come back to, we're a colony, because that's not people looking after people. That's not people looking after each other, and it sets a precedent. Actually, it's okay, we just use each other. I'll use you, you use me. I manipulate. We're big. We've got loads. That is fundamentally not well-being economy.
We could talk about this for a really long time, and we will talk.
We'll talk about it more.
But I want to go. I want to say, in case anyone is listening to this and thinking, well,
that's progress.
I understand that. I understand that you could think that, and I just want you to listen to other people's stories, to what we've said. Get curious. Don't just read mainstream news coverage.
And
of
no
what's
judgment.
going on.
I would have thought that too. I lived in the city, and I would have thought that too. We're being really forward thinking. We're planning ahead. We're being the pioneers of this. It's like we're being duped.
And people who live in rural Scotland and rural other places, but we are talking about Scotland mainly. People who live in rural Scotland work hard. It's harder to live rurally than it is to live in a city. It's different. You have to do more different stuff. You have to be a bit more active with the environment. People here if they thought that this was going to help the environment, would be willing to consider all the options. But that's not what's happening. I'm really happy for anyone to challenge me on that. Find me at Noble House Scott. It's fine. But also, I truly believe if someone could go, this will and has to happen to save the planet, that people would go, okay. But that is not the facts that we know from researching this for the last year, and the campaign groups up and down the country, and the people who actually live here and are dealing with the day-to-day stress of not knowing whether they can be safe in their home. So that is one of the reasons that we are activists. And some of those things the core of those movements are because there's a personal impact. But I'm fighting now for us, my neighbours, my community, my campaign group, the woman who lives right at the top of the line, who's a beautiful soul, who could lose everything. So now I fight for us and everybody.
And before, in fairness, before we knew it was, they moved the line to be all around us. We were already fighting. As we said, it's not in anybody's yard. Not in anybody's yard. No, absolutely not. And we don't want you to move it. We do want you to move it, but we're not putting our neighbours through that. That's not acceptable, because it's absolutely terrifying not to know what's going to happen to you, your home, your communities. Everybody in the area is impacted. Everybody you speak to is talking about it. And
if you don't need to know any of that, just think, do you ever go and visit the Highlands, or do you like to go for a drive at the weekend? You're going to see it. We're all going to see it. It's going to impact us all.
Skye, everywhere.
So stay
active.
How to sign this one off is
go to
question everything.
Yeah. You don't have to fight all the battles yourselves. We are a network. You'll have your network. Let's network. Keep asking why.
Yeah.
We need to understand, not just black and white concrete yelling at each other. We need to seek to understand and to come up with an adult way forward that's got well-being at its core, and well-being of the planet and all the endangered species around us that are going to You can see us on noblehouse.scot.
Yeah, or Noble House Scott Facebook.
Oh, yes.
Noble House Scott on YouTube.
Yes.
Or just come back next week for another podcast.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Spirited and personal. Take good care.
Bye.
Bye.